Hello, I'm Susan Pascoe and I'm the chair of the Oceania Task Force created by the Federation of Catholic Bishops' Conferences of Oceania to support their discernment on the document for the continental stage. The FCBCO also created a discernment and writing group to come together and take what has emerged from each of the 4 Episcopal conferences in Oceania and the Eastern churches in their small groups of prayer, reflection, listening and discernment, synthesised into national submissions and provided to us for our deliberation. We are gathered here today. We have a full week, in fact, together at the Catholic Leadership Centre in Melbourne, and we are adopting the process of the spiritual conversation and a very rigorous process of discernment so that we can bring forth the voices of the people of God in Oceania to the next stage of the synodal journey, which is the discernment and reflection on the 7 submissions that come from the continents, and then the writing of the Instrumentum Laboris that will draw life from that submission process. And the people who are assembled here today are a very broad representation of the people of God in Oceania. I welcome you to listen to their voices.
Glory to Jesus Christ, glory forever. I'm Father Nicholas, Father Colin for short. I'm a priest of the Melkite Catholic Eparchy of Australia and New Zealand, based here in Melbourne, and I am one of the representatives of the Eastern Catholic Churches of Oceania.
Hello, afternoon. Name me Grace Warkia. I come from the conference of PNG and Solomon Islands.
Hello, I'm Renee Kohler-Ryan and I am representing the Australian Catholic Bishops' Conference at this meeting.
Hafaday Jan Tiro. My name is Ryan Jimenez. I'm Bishop of the Diocese of Chalan-Canoa in the Northern Mariana Islands. I represent the Pacific Bishops' Conference, CPAC, so I'm glad to be here for this discernment and writing process for the continental phase of Synod and Synodality.
Kia ora tātou, tālofa, malo lelei. My name is Therese Lautua and I am from Auckland, New Zealand.
I've seen a number of themes that resonates with other conferences, but something particular to PNG Solomon Island, which we have brought, is that our church, the church in PNG, is fairly quite young. And we bring to Oceania that youthfulness of we're going back to how the early Christians lived, the basic Christian communities, how we celebrate our faith together in those communities. It's like a gift we're bringing to the universal church, the youthfulness of the church in PNG Solomon Island. Also we bring a theme that is the synodality, the coming together, discerning together, listening with respect and listening with an open ear to those, maybe those who are small, those who are minority, and respecting the diversity we have in the region.
Particular themes that were brought by the Eastern Catholic Churches, largely themes of us being a church, being more than just ethnic communities, rather autonomous churches with a strong liturgical, spiritual and theological heritage that can be shared with the other Catholic churches in Australia and Oceania as well. There's a deep spirituality and deep tradition, deep heritage that can be shared with the rest of the churches of Oceania, especially those churches especially those churches in Oceania where church communities, especially where culture plays a very important role, still plays a very important role in their communities. The other themes as well has been largely youth and families, the importance of the youth as the future leaders of our church, and also the importance of the Christian family.
My experience here, being here in Melbourne for this discernment and our writing process, we are concretely living this out, and how this sense of synodality and fellowship, from praying together, sharing meals together, discussing things, and even just kind of getting to know each other. And I think that should how a church be like. Like, there is the huge gap. The church as hierarchy should, we should try to have like this idea of the church as communion, communion, mission, rather than looking at the structures of the bishops are separated from the priests from the lay people. Like, there's that divide, there's that gap. So my hope, my wish is that through this continental phase of synod and synodality, that we would truly be able to bridge that gap.
There's certainly been a call for ongoing formation, and there's been the realisation across the entire region that it's very difficult to actually reach out to the marginalised who are already baptised but have somehow checked out of the Catholic Church, and that during the time of the pandemic, it became increasingly difficult to actually reach out to members of the church. So that shared challenge of trying to find people, to meet them where they are, to understand their concerns, and then to invite them into the joyful and hopeful life of a Christian community is something that we all share across the region. So that's been really interesting to see.
I've seen a strong desire to speak for the ocean, and because it takes up 1/3 of the planet on the earth, and if we and the church in the region cannot speak for it, then who will? So the ecological crisis is really key. The idea of wanting to continue the spirit of synodality, not just beyond this process in the next couple of years, but that it be something that continually forms and shapes the church and impacts, from the high governance level right the way down to everyday parish life.
I think that the experience of synodality, the new experience of synodality as we've experienced in the last 2 years, have been great for our churches, in the sense that, yes, on the one hand there is the timeless and the ancient and ever new expression of synodality as practiced in our churches, but on the other hand as well, it has given us an opportunity to speak, to share with the rest of the church, especially in Oceania, that we do exist, and that we are not merely migrant chaplaincies, ethnic communities, but rather that we are autonomous churches. We are living and standing churches, Catholic churches within the region, with something to offer to the rest of the Catholic Church in Oceania, in terms of being faithful to the apostolic tradition that we've received, but at the same time, offering lessons, offering solid, sound lessons on how the gospel and the culture intermingle with each other.
Oh, I think this whole concept of synodality, of discerning and listening, and it's very much Melanesian, it's very much Papua New Guinean, because that's what we always do. We come together in a round table discussion before we make decisions. We acknowledge the small people in our community. We acknowledge the leaders in our community. And before we come to a decision, we always come together. And I think synodality is really, it really resonates with Melanesians, with Papua New Guineans. And it's a beautiful concept. It's a spirit-filled movement which I hope and pray that it continues to dwell in the church. It continues after this. The spirit of synodality is it's a beautiful spirit that must live long after this.
I think that an increasing awareness of synodality brings with it a sense that each of us is baptised, and that shared baptism tends to break down barriers. And so it's not that individuals don't have particular ways of being in the church, hierarchically or otherwise, but that the hierarchy kind of falls away when we meet together. And that's what we really find whenever there's a synodal experience, as we might call it, that you can have, you know, a bishop will be sitting next to a young person, will be sitting next to a religious, you know, a priest, a lay person.
My hope is that my brother bishops in this gathering next month will read this, discern, pray, and look at it with critical eye, you know, and also with a heart that is open, that is also reflective of truly what are the needs, you know, of the different dioceses, the jurisdictions in the Pacific. Because as I said, you know, even though we are separated by large bodies of water, there are common concerns, common themes that really bring us together. And to have just a voice, you know, the Oceania voice, and this document which will then be submitted to Rome, you know, what a beautiful way of being part of the larger whole.
My hope is that it really represents the people of Oceania, that we don't forget the people in the villages who do not have access to technology, and all the people who felt left out in the church as well, so that it's an honest and authentic representation of their voice, that we can honestly look at ourselves as church and decide how we want to move forward into the future.